Okay, now I'm going to talk about magnetic boundary conditions. So, in this part, we want to know what are the characteristics when a magnetic field passes through two different mediums, as shown in the figure here. So we have two mediums. Medium one, we have mu1, permeability mu1, and medium two, we have permeability mu2. So they have different permeabilities. And this line here, curved line here, represents the boundary. Now take note that this is a three-dimensional image drawn in a two-dimensional surface. So basically this is not a line, but it is a surface. And the surface is coming out of the page. Okay, so this is not a line, actually this is a surface. And on the surface, you can see the red circles here. The red circles represent the surface charge density that exists for boundaries where we have perfect conductors. Okay, so the direction, because it's a dot in the middle, the direction is going out of the page. So the direction is headed towards the viewer. Okay, next we need to know that for a magnetic field, let's say H1 and H2 represented by this green vector, we can separate it into its own components, which is component that is tangential to the boundary, parallel to the boundary, or normal to the boundary. So normal is 90 degrees with respect to the boundary. Okay, so we can separate them into tangential and normal components. So it applies to both mediums. So we label them as H1 and H2 respectively. Now the purpose of this derivation is to identify what are the characteristics of tangential and normal components for magnetic field intensity H and magnetic flux density B. Okay, so let's see the first derivation. So from electric boundary condition, we have Gauss's law. Gauss's law states that the closed surface integral of electric flux density equals to the total charge enclosed by the surface. So from there, we have this relationship. The normal component of electric flux density at medium 1 minus medium 2 equals to the surface charge density that exists in the boundary. Okay, so if the surface charge density is 0, then the normal component of the first medium is equal to the second medium. In other words, D1 normal equals to D2 normal. So this is derived from electric boundary condition. So by analogy, application of Gauss's law for magnetism, we already derived in Gauss's law for magnetism, we cannot separate the north and south pole. So if we have a closed surface area, the total net magnetic flux will be 0. In other words, the normal component of the magnetic flux as it crosses the boundary, okay, it's not shown in the figure, but it is implied. Okay, there's no drawing here that shows the relationship, but it's implied. Since it's 0, that means the normal component from medium 1 and medium 2 is the same. Okay, so the normal component of magnetic flux B is continuous across the boundary between two adjacent media. So by extension, since we know that B equals to mu H, we can identify the relationship for the magnetic field intensity normal component using this equation here. Okay, so the ratio of the magnetic field intensity between medium 1 and medium 2 is simply the ratio of the permeability between the two medium. Okay, this is the first relationship. Now let's move on to the second relationship. So the second relationship, we want to know what is the tangential component. Just now we derived for normal component. Now we want to look at the tangential or parallel component. So now we apply this figure or rectangle here. So we want to utilize Ampere's law. Ampere's law states that for a closed line, of a magnetic field intensity, the total current is enclosed by the line. So first we apply Ampere's law by creating a closed rectangle at the boundary. So the length is given as delta L and the height of the boundary is delta H, and we separate in such a way that the rectangles are cut evenly across the boundary. That's why we have delta H over 2 and delta H over 2 here. Then we let delta H to approach 0. In other words, we shrink this line AD and BC, we shrink them until the line approaches 0, means that until it approaches the boundary. So we have only a thin rectangle that covers just the boundary. And by doing that, we can assume that H is almost 0. And we need to only compute or calculate this line from C to D and from A to B only. Okay, we engineers always try to simplify our mathematical equations. Right, then what happens? We have this equation where by right, because it's a closed integral, we need to consider A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A. But because we allow H to become almost 0, then we only need to calculate from A to B and C to D, because we assume these sides here are negligible. So the Ampere's law states that these two lines contribute to the total current. Now, the current I is equal to Js multiplied by delta L. So Js is the magnitude of the surface current density normal to the loop. So this is the loop. So normal to the loop is going up or down. Okay. So it can be written as this one. Please take note that Js here is the magnitude, but Js here is a vector with dot product with the direction of n. So n is the direction of the surface charge, which is heading towards us or going out of the page. So we can rewrite now the Ampere's law. We convert the integral because basically we do the integration to find the value for the line. But since we know the line as delta L, then we don't need to integrate. We can directly apply H1 minus H2 L1 delta L. So delta L is the length here. Why does L2 here disappear into L1? Because we know that L1 and L2 is exactly the same length. The only difference is the direction. So we can put it as H1L1 minus H2L1. And we can factor it out. Because L1 is equivalent to L2, only the direction is opposite. That's why we have the negative sign here. So we have delta L representing the differential length equal to Js dot n delta L from here. So we can cancel the differential length delta L, the difference in length delta L. L1 by right, the direction of L1 here is a product from the direction of the surface charge, current charge density, n, and the direction of the loop, normal from the loop, so n2. So n is going out of the page, and 2 is moving across the boundary, so we get L1 here. Okay, in this case, going to the left. Okay, then we apply vector identity. We know that A dot B cross C from scalar triple product is equal to B dot C cross A. Okay, so if you don't remember this, we derive from scalar triple product. So A dot B cross C, A is H1 minus H2, B is N, C is N2. So we can rearrange into N dot product with N2 cross product with H1 minus H2. Okay, by applying the vector identity, we can now replace, so B dot C cross A, this is B and this is C. So B dot C cross A, this is A. So N here and N here can be cancelled out. So we get this equation here. Note that this equation can be applied only for superconductors because current densities at the boundary here only exist when it is a perfect conductor or superconductor. So for finite conductors, Js is equal to 0. So we can cancel the vectors and find that the H1 tangent equals to H2 tangent. Okay, by extension, we can calculate from the magnetic field strength the magnetic flux. So the tangential component is actually a ratio also. So B1 tangent divided by mu1 equals to B2 tangent divided by mu2, or B1 tangent divided by B2 tangent equals to 1 over mu2. Right. So comparing the behavior of electric and magnetic flux across a boundary reveal a striking difference. So when we compare the behavior, the normal component of magnetic flux is continuous across a boundary, okay, the 90 degrees component for magnetic flux. But the normal component of electric flux is not, unless there is no surface charge at the boundary. Okay. On the other hand, the opposite happens for the tangential component. So the tangential component of electric field intensity is continuous across a boundary, but the tangential component of magnetic field intensity H is not, unless the surface current density Js is equal to 0. Okay, these are the important highlights for magnetic boundary conditions and its comparison to electric boundary condition.